Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from The Next Reel.
And I'm Pete Wright, yours and forever from The Next Reel.
We are talking about Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man. And joining us again is Eric Nash from the Watchmen Minute Podcast. Hey, Eric.
Hey, guys. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you back. We are talking about Iron Man Minute 29. On today's show, the minute starts with Abu and his men trying to figure out which way is up and ends with Raza's dramatic entrance. Oh, man, we are so close to getting more of this guy.
It's killing me. It's just
I'm very excited. Me. This is, we get this, the minute starts, and of course, we get a little more of Tony building. He's welding. This is this side of Tony that I think makes the title work so well, where we actually see him working in metal. This whole idea of Iron Man, and here he is welding metal pieces together. It just makes sense, and I love that about this film.
You start thinking, okay, maybe they're leaning in a little bit too heavily on the title, but God, it just feels good to watch him get dirty, engineering something, creating something without the use of all the technology that we know he has at his disposal. I mean, it just lets us. He's solving a problem without just throwing money at it. And it's nice to be reminded that this is a hero that can work with his hands.
And it does tie back so nicely to him as the grease monkey working on the car in his shop earlier. And just getting a sense of this guy who can do that and isn't afraid to do that, even when he is just as comfortable wearing a tuxedo or being at an event at a casino or doing a presentation in front of investors. He clearly has a good handle on it. And I love that about Tony. It makes him feel so effective in so many ways. He's not just the playboy, but here he is also building something. And you're right. It's really gratifying. We cut away from the moment. First he's welding, and then we see him attaching a little tank to his tube there. And then we get a great cut to the team. This is, again, Abu, Ahmed, and Omar looking at the monitors, and they have a photo of the Jericho missile, and they're talking as they are looking at the screen, trying to figure out exactly what he is doing. This moment is even funnier when you get it translated from the Arabic. It just cracks me up because Abu says something doesn't feel right. And then Ahmed says to him, flip the picture, which makes no sense. Like, oh, that's gonna make it work. That's a great little moment of comedy that you have there buried in the, not necessarily wonderfully spoken Arabic, but at least the actors are delivering it well enough where people can translate it for us.
Well, see, I like that. It's a much better way to continue to leverage Abu, right? It makes me just that much more relieved that we didn't lose him a minute ago.
Right. Well, technically, I will say to that point, that scene of the backgammon match when all of that happens is actually several minutes after this, the way that it's scripted.
Right.
So they actually edited in here. And so he would have actually still been alive and would have died after this. So to that end, it would have been okay.
Okay, so they are looking at the thing. They can't figure it out. And then we cut to the cave and entrance again. And I know you're hot on this cave entrance.
So this is this great moment where you have the guards outside. This is, passage of time. We cut to these transitions. And just as a reminder of what the guard looked like in the minute before this, from minute 27, I think. So I'm convinced that this is the exact same setup with the same people and everything. They just got a wide shot and a tight shot of these guards. And then they just played with the lighting and they fiddled with the colors to make it look a little darker for this shot in this particular minute. But I'm convinced that, it's exactly the same setup and that they're not doing anything. They're not changing out the guards. We still have one bending down. The one who's standing, he's like bending down to warm his hands. It's totally the exact same four guys.
It's got to be the same guys. But, that's sort of believable.
If anything, there's a slight angle. There's a slight angle change. Ever so slight. But
Ever so slight. Like they just move the camera over a few feet to get the other shot. I can imagine that this is kind of a Great Gatsby sort of thing where they're trying to say, time passes, yet everything is exactly the same. Time passes, yet nothing changes. But I really have a hard time just believing that that's exactly what their intention was. Although I will say, I've never noticed that it's the exact same thing before.
Well, it's about a second and a half, if that, right? I mean, it's short.
Right. Yeah, it's just not the thing that you're really paying attention to when you're watching in context of the entire film.
Exactly.
But watching minute by minute, you really start noticing these things. We do get a great shot of Raza here as we see Tony. I guess it goes from Abu and his men, and then we get that exterior shot, and then we get that shot of Raza as he's watching Tony trying out a leg piece. And Raza's got that great moment where he kind of twists that ring on his finger. And, he's of the 10 Rings terrorist group, so of course he's got a ring on. But it's a great little moment. And he just has this fantastically intense face that works so well for this moment.
He absolutely does. The guy is, you just would never know that he would go on to command a starship. Really, I mean, amazing career trajectory.
It really was. And again, all I can do as I look at this moment of him is now imagine him twisting his ring and then picking up a spoonful of peanut butter and putting it in his mouth.
So we go from here and we cut to sinister green, blue light, and we do get this one fantastic shot at second 35. It's another one of those shots that it's like a hero shot of Tony Stark because he has the welding goggles on, and it's awesome
as he looks up from his little torch.
Yeah, and visually, I mean, it's funny. It reminds me so much of like an image you would see right out of the Watchmen. It is such a nice kind of yellow tone. Clearly, he's working on stuff. I love that he's welding pieces of metal together that are like old signs. I think it's like a parking sign or so. Oh, no, it says Stark. I always imagined it said Park, which I think would be better. Maybe it's like a gas station sign. I think that would be great. But no, it's obviously part of an old weapon. And I just love the sort of grit of it. And then we go blue again because the terrorists come in and there is nothing warm about it.
It's almost more of a greenish light now. It's kind of like that sickly neon light that they're using.
Right.
Which is pretty nice.
Yeah, and the way they fan into the room is blocked so beautifully. Obviously, Tony and the doctor know exactly what to do now. They've got their hands up over their heads, and the terrorists come in and they just sort of fan out. And we know that there is some level of incompetence of the terrorists on the other side of that door, but in here, we don't know that Tony and Yinsen know that they are sort of incompetent.
Not at all. It's always been fairly threatening, aside from the laundry detail.
Right.
But otherwise, the previous scenes where Abu has been talking, we want you to build this missile and all this sort of stuff. And Abu always acts like he's Tony's friend. Like, as soon as we're done, we'll set you free. But they know that that's a total lie. And so while Abu continues feigning this politeness and everything, he clearly is still the guard and Tony is still the prisoner. But what's interesting about this moment is as they come in, this is the moment when we have Abu coming right in the middle, all of a sudden he kind of moves off to the side as well. And this is kind of that first moment where Raza is really coming in and taking center stage. And it's really gratifying to finally see this guy who's always been in the distance watching from afar now coming in for his confrontation.
Absolutely. It's a little bit of a twist, it's a twist that we already knew was coming. We knew at some point this guy was going to have to demonstrate his authority, but it's such a great reveal as the bodies part at the end of this minute and we see him emerge. It just looks great.
Absolutely. We have a lot more guards here. Again, we have Abu, Ahmed, and Omar, of course, and Raza, Farhan Tahir coming in. But then immediately flanking Raza, once he's kind of down at the bottom of the steps, you've got two guards there right around like second 55. The two who are frontmost, the one on the left, that looks like that is, again, utility stunt player Ben Bray, who is playing the guard over there, and Ray Siegel is the guard on screen right. also a utility stunt player, as they tend to be with these particular roles. They were the two easiest ones to pinpoint. Once they get farther back, I couldn't quite tell who they were, but those are the two right there in the forefront. Now, I have done this with some of our other guests and people on the show, Eric, but Farhan Tahir, you may recognize him from some other roles, but are you familiar with the IMDb game where they try to guess the 4 movies that show up as the 4 movies on an actor's page that I guess IMDb says represents them?
I totally understand what you're saying.
Well, so it's always fun to try guessing what these movies are. So with Farhan Tahir, I don't know how familiar you are, or Pete, with his particular career, but if you guys had to guess what movies would show up in the 4 movies that IMDb says represent his career, what would you guess those movies are? And as has been proven time and time again, it's not always the films that are the most popular or the most financially successful.
I got to go all in on Star Trek 2009.
That's the only one I got too.
And that is his number 1, actually.
Oh, well,
Captain Robow.
As it should be.
Any other guesses?
Well, I'm going to say this one.
Good guess. Yes, Iron Man is number 2.
Okay.
He's an actor who I know I've seen in other things, but it's hard for me to pinpoint what those are. Number 3 is actually Elysium. He played President Patel in Elysium.
Well, so I know I can't think of another movie, but he was in a show that I really liked. He was one of the menacing board members in Warehouse 13, and I know he's been in a lot of stuff other than that. But I was just a big fan of that show. It was super fun, and so I know he's there. But I can't think for the life of me what other movies he has been in.
Well, I've seen this other movie that he was in. I quite like the lead actor. I guess I just didn't think of it, but it is actually Charlie Wilson's War.
What?
Yeah, with Tom Hanks, Julia Roberts, Philip Seymour Hoffman. He plays Brigadier Rashid in that film.
Well, that's not I could never have done that. I could never have picked that.
I would never have guessed that either.
That is not a thing I would have come up with.
But yes, you're right. He's been in a lot of stuff. He has 84 credits on IMDb, including some that he's working on right now. He was in a lot of TV. He just was in the 12 Monkeys TV series. And he did a couple episodes of Scandal and Prison Break and American Crime. And so he's definitely a guy who gets around and stays busy, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So...
And this is a big cliffhanger, right? Because he comes into the room and doesn't say anything at the end of this. It's it. That's the end. He just comes in and we cut. Nothing happens after this, as far as we know, until tomorrow.
Right.
It's the curse of our cliffhanger.
He may come in, look at them, and walk out.
It's right. His next line is, "Anyone fancy a tickle?" And that's how this movie totally pivots. You'll never see it coming.
Well, it should have been called Tickle Man.
That's exactly right.
That has to be one of the worst superheroes. Tickle Man.
Anyone want to tickle?
I'd like to imagine that Tickle Man's a villain, though, because that's just torture. That's pure torture. Oh, no, it is a great end to the minute. Yeah, I love this reveal of Raza. He's been building for 29 minutes so far, with bits and pieces, always mysterious. And finally, we get this moment. And it's interesting. There have been other moments where I feel like he probably has seen stuff happening on the screen that he should have questioned. But is finally this moment when he sees Tony trying out this leg contraption, part of his suit that is going to be for his leg. That is the moment that finally pushes him over the edge, where he's going to come in and confront Tony personally.
That's right. Enough is officially enough. And that's right. Perfect.
No more fun and games and arguments about darks and lights.
That's right.
One thing I'm curious about is the seconds 33, 36-ish there with Abu looking through the little hole, and he says something, but I mean, why is that? I mean, I can understand looking through the hole, just seeing what's up, making sure nothing crazy is going to be on the other side, right on the other side of the door, but for all of them to come through. But why he's giving Tony and
the translation that I did get translated from Reddit, of course, he's screaming out to them. He says, "Prisoners." So I think really it's just a moment of getting their attention to make sure that they know that they need to be in position for when these guys come in. He's got to take off his goggles. He's got to get himself ready. What's interesting about that you pointed it out, we've got the moment right after that Pete had already called out when Tony looks up from his welding that he's doing. The way that Tony looks, like the direction that he's looking, is over Yinsen's shoulder. So it looks like Yinsen is between Tony and the door where he's looking at Abu. Yet when we cut to the shot after the door opens, Tony is on screen right and Yinsen is on screen left. There is no way that actually lined up. And so it's an interesting little bit of editing work, I guess, that they did there to make that cut together where you don't notice it, but when you are looking at it minute by minute, you start seeing these things. Plus, Tony obviously had to put his welding away very quickly, put his torch out, take his goggles off, look at the gloves he's wearing. He's got those serious, like those welder's gloves on.
Again, compressing time. This probably took 15 minutes to make this transition, and once again demonstrates what a cheap and slipshod production Iron Man was.
It was very independent.
That's right.
Marvel independent movie. They don't have those Russo budgets yet.
No, not yet.
Not quite. Oh man! Anything else for this minute, you guys?
The only other thing is the goggles that you've mentioned a couple of times now, and you even said Watchmen, related to Watchmen, and that'd be a Night Owl thing, and a thing over there that we talked about that we loved. The idea that Night Owl doesn't have to do the blackening of the eyes because he wears goggles. He doesn't have to do the blackening of the eyes. That is a big problem for Batman.
All
like
superheroes, Batman in particular.
Well, especially in the one that the Batman guys are doing right now, Batman Returns. I'm sure they'll touch on it.
Right.
Near the end when he takes off his cowl and all of a sudden he doesn't have any black paint or anything.
I like how even for Lego Batman, and I know this is a total departure for this particular minute, but even, and I'm talking about the physical, like little Lego Batman toy that you have, you got the Bruce Wayne face, and then the other side of it is the Batman face, and it just has a black bar across your little Lego guy. Or no, it's a white bar because because when you push the little Batman mask on him, it lines up perfectly. But I like how they have to do it that way, even for the little Batman toy.
That's really funny.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you so much again for joining us for this particular minute of Iron Man.
Welcome.
We're going to be back for one more minute with you. But where can guests find you in the meantime?
Again, to find me personally, my Twitter handle is Lucky Mustard. And actually, things on Instagram, it's Lucky Mustard Dean, ING at the end.
Fantastic. Well, that's it, everybody, for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room. And, of course, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at patreon.com/thenextreel. Until next time, true believers.